time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur podcast. I am your hostess with mostest, Jeanette Anderson, and today I'm here with the beautiful, fabulous, and talented Diana Devi, and we're going to be talking about how aging is not the problem, you are, and what you can do about that. So I'm glad you're here, Diana. Welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to have you. And as usual, everybody, the purpose of this podcast is to give you food for thought on the inner and outer game of transformation for yourself in terms of where you're going next. And I think this conversation is going to be pretty interesting to give you some real ideas about how to increase your sense of confidence so that you can take on those next leaps with greater enthusiasm, courage, and willingness. So I'll tell you the official word on Diana, and then I'm going to tell you we'll get the juicy inside scoop from her about her. And then we're going to dive in on this topic of really how do we feel confident, sexy, accomplished, and ready to rock, and better physically so that we can create that next chapter. So Diana Devi is a clinical pharmacist, health coach, and Argentine tango dancer who empowers women over 50 to feel confident and radiant at any age. Over the course of her career, she's helped thousands in their journey to better health, blending science, movement, and mindset to support vitality and well-being. She founded an Ageless Life to provide women with transformative strategies from navigating plastic surgery to demystifying supplements and aging well. A lifelong dancer, she infuses her work with the grace and strength of tango, proving that movement isn't just exercise, it's self-care in motion. Oh, I love that line. That's a good line. All right. So that's a great intro to you and a little bit about you, but tell us something that maybe even your friends would be surprised to learn about you. What would people not guess when they first meet you, besides
Um,
that you're an Argentinian dancer?
the thing they probably wouldn't guess is that I like Godzilla movies.
Ah, okay. I would not have guessed that. And what is
Exactly. So I got hooked on them when I was a kid, and my brother loved them. So I'm talking the old ones with the Japanese and the mouse move and the talking's the other. Anyway, so I love them, and I watch the newer ones as well. So that's something that people probably would not ever guess by looking at me.
and what is it about them that fascinates you?
I think it is nature rebelling against man, and really that whole thing of, and eventually Godzilla is actually helping humankind. We just didn't realize it, and all of those kinds of things. But really looking at how that really turns the table on what it is that we think and do, and understanding that using up all of these resources is maybe not the best way to go. So
That's fascinating. I did not know Godzilla movies had that message, and I didn't know Godzilla was a good guy. I thought he was a bad guy. So there you
he started out bad, but he
go.
got good later.
Okay, I did not know that there was that transformative journey for him. See, I've learned something already on this podcast. All right, so let's talk about you and your why. So you were a clinical pharmacist, and now you do this work in terms of coaching and
Yeah.
supporting with education. Um, so not what do you do, but why do you do what you do? Why do you care about this?
I think I care so much about it because it was my personal mission, my journey, so to speak. So when I was in my 50s, I was dancing Argentine tango, but I noticed I didn't have any energy. I wasn't feeling good. And all of these things are really important as far as how you appear in order to dance and get dances. But also, I was a human calculator in my group when we'd go out to eat, and they'd say, "Okay, tell us how much we owe," and all of that. And I couldn't do any of that anymore. and I
Mm,
didn't feel good and I wasn't sleeping well. And I cut way back on what I was eating and was still gaining weight and just not feeling right. I knew there was something wrong. So went to my doctor. She did tests, sat me down and said, there is nothing wrong with you.
mm,
Getting old and you need to get used to it.
mm-hmm.
So that enough right there was like, oh, really? I don't think so.
Yes. Yay. That's the perfectly appropriate response to that comment. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what had you say that though? Because a lot of people would listen to that, especially from what a friend of mine used to call M deities. We tend to give our power to professionals like doctors and think that they have all the answers and they know.
Yeah.
And they are smart and they do know a lot, but they don't know everything. And so what had you go, I don't think so.
It was noticing the difference in women. So, not long after that, I'd gone to a restaurant and there was a woman who was celebrating her 85th birthday. And she was laughing and having a good time and very mobile and just, I would not have known she was 85 years old if there hadn't been an 85 on the birthday cake.
Mhm.
And I thought, that's how I want to age.
Right.
I need to figure out how to do that rather than, blending in with beige into my couch and forever not, doing anything.
Right.
And I loved dancing so much that I was not willing to give that up. But
Mhm.
I also thought, this is too young for me to feel this way.
Yeah.
Something is not right.
And
So,
so is that when you started an ageless life?
I danced Argentine tango, and I'm also have also taught Argentine tango. So I had women that were in that age demographic that were coming to me for lessons, and so they would come into the lesson and they go, I'm here for a tango lesson, but what I really want to know is what did you do? What was the other stuff that you did? So I'm like, okay, universe is talking to me here.
Ooh,
Time to do something different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so tell us a little bit about the other stuff you did. And I want to talk to you about two things. One is that transformational journey into a business person from being a professional, an employed professional prior to that, and what that was like for you. But I also want to talk to you about your topic and your expertise around how did you do that? So what are some of the components of living an ageless life?
So it's understanding that our bodies are different. So one of the things that I say a lot is we don't feed a 20-year-old the same as we do a toddler. So why do we think at 45, 50 or whatever that we can eat the same as we did when we're 20? We can't. Our body needs different things. So understanding that it's not something to be emotionally attached to, but saying, okay, I think of myself as not, I need high grade fuel. Awesome. That's great. Or, that's just one of the things, changing your sleeping and thinking about how, but really understanding that your body is different and embracing it is one of the major things to do.
That's a great analogy, and I haven't heard that before, but it instantly makes me think differently. I wouldn't feed a 20-year-old what I feed a toddler. So, yes, I probably should change my diet and haven't from when I was 20. Well, maybe slightly. What are some of the shifts that need to happen with regards to that?
So, some of the major things are our bodies handle carbs differently. So, understanding that they handle them differently. Also, we don't absorb protein the same way that we did when we're younger. We're not as efficient with it. So, we need to increase our protein intake. There are very specific times of day when it is better for us to load with protein than others. Also, understanding that, and this is really true for anybody, sugar is not your friend,
Hmm.
nor is processed food. But what you could tolerate when you were younger becomes even more challenging as you get older. So I'm not saying you never do it. I happen to have a wheat allergy. I'm not celiac, but it's actually a true allergy. So I know that once every 2 months, I can have something that's got wheat in it. And there happens to be a bakery here that is, he's, James Beard Award winner, makes the best croissants ever. I'm going in full bore. I'm having that. And then I don't, do anything else. But so understanding how you can work with what your body is now is really important.
So tell me a little bit more about the carbs. What's changed there?
What's changed there is that we metabolize carbs differently. And so because we don't burn energy the same way,
Hmm.
don't have as much muscle mass, don't have as burn them as quickly, they have a tendency then to deposit more into fat,
Okay.
right? And so our bodies are prone to do that because, again, the drop in metabolism doesn't need as much. Now, there are things you can do about that, but generally speaking, yeah.
Okay. So generally speaking, as we age, we should reduce our carb intake. And
Simple carbs, I should qualify it. Yeah.
okay. Okay. So give people who may not know what that means, what does that include? What do simple carbs include?
So simple carbs would be anything that, for example, sugar, any sugary products. So that kind of is a double category, sugar and carbs. But white bread,
Hmm.
pasta, some of those kinds of things and you can think of it as the stuff that your body instantly metabolizes, crackers, potato chips, all of those kinds of things are the things that, to minimize and make it a special treat rather than an everyday thing.
Okay. And you mentioned more protein. So are we talking about increasing protein a lot, a little? And you said certain times a day. So what's that about?
So that is about making sure that you get protein to start the day with. And I know for a lot of us, it's like we don't eat breakfast, we don't really like to. Food in the morning is like, I need to have my coffee or some kind of beverage first. But really having that protein first thing in the morning, and the recommendation is 30 grams within half an hour of when you get up really sets your metabolism to be the right way. And to contrast that, if you eat carbs first thing in the morning, the studies that I've been following talk about the fact that you will eat 25 to 50% more because your body's had the carbs and now they're craving more and want more and more. So, um, if you can't eat the full amount of protein, just don't go with, two pieces of toast or that bowl of cereal.
Okay. And before you have your cup of coffee or in my case, cup of tea, or can you have that first and then have your protein?
I put it in my tea.
Your protein?
It's a
What
powder. I
what do you
use a powder and then so I'll have the first thing that I do is protein powder, which it's really important what kind you get. But I'll put the protein powder in drink cacao. So
uh
it's the ground up
yeah.
cocoa beans. I have that and I put that in there. It doesn't change the flavor. And then I will eat something.
Interesting.
I don't know that I could eat before I have my.
Okay, because I was going to say, oh, protein powder in my tea would be awful, but I see what you mean. You got to find a way to adapt it and
That's
make.
exactly right.
Okay, and so those are some tips around food. What are some of the other components to living an ageless life that makes a big difference or really helped you?
Moving, and it's not super difficult. So most of us have some kind of smart device, right? So in the morning when I'm getting my drink ready, I turn on one of my favorite songs, and I've got like a list of 10, and I just dance around the kitchen for 3 minutes or 6 minutes, whatever I'm feeling like. So the metabolism boost because of the protein, metabolism boost because you're dancing around in the kitchen, and it helps wake your body up, wake your brain up, gets a circulation going. So, and I do that a couple times a day. And I know I'm a dancer, but still, everybody, I mean, you see toddlers that jiggle when they hear music, right?
That
Everybody can do it.
that's one of my favorite videos to go down the rabbit hole on, or dancing babies, dancing or giggling
So
babies.
cute.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And so movement, and yes, it can be dance. It can, I'm assuming, could be walking. It could be, and I know for me,
anything.
I'm still working, and many of the people who are listening to this are maturepreneurs. So people who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot may still be in a job. They may be transitioning. They may be an entrepreneur like me. I spend too long sitting. So I try and make a point of getting up at least once an hour, and some days I have to set my little phone alarm.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'll work straight through. until I have to pee, and then I get up. But so just getting up and walking around the upstairs so that I get the blood flowing again and kind of take that little mental break and so forth. So moving out of your chair really helps, I'm assuming.
Yes.
What else do you do? You've got a passion in terms of Argentine tango, but who
Yeah.
else do you know that has? What are some other things that people that you've seen have taken on that has helped them kind of reverse or slow down their aging?
So one of the things that a couple of friends of mine have taken on, and I also have a couple of clients, is pickleball.
Oh yeah.
They
Mm-hmm.
love pickleball. So it starts out as being pickleball, and then it's like, well, I have a game coming up or this or that. So I want to do a little bit more to make sure that I train and feel better. And,
Yeah.
so it really kind of tends to bend. I have another client who she plays tennis and
Yep.
she loves to play tennis, or another one who there's a Boundary Waters here that you go up north and it's very rustic and she loves to do that. So she will start her training for that because you're carrying a heavy pack and you have whatever you carry in, you have to carry out. So finding whatever that thing is that you really like to do, it can be riding a bike, it can be walking. I have a client who walks her dog. That's what she does. And the dog has to go out twice a day. So she always knows that but something that really gives you the motivation, because once you find what you like, you'll stick with it.
Yeah, yeah, and you do have to like it. There's a site that I use once in a while when I remember, and I also put it in my phone when I really want to be more consistent with it, is called Body Groove. I think bodygroove.com. And it's a fabulous lady, and they have all different kinds of movement, like dance, but
Yeah.
movement um, programs anywhere from 2 minutes to you can do like an hour, and a bunch of 2 minute ones, all different levels. They have yoga, they have a bunch of other things as well. But I love her movement ones because they're just fun and they get you in your body and they're easy and you can adjust for whatever your level is. You can do it in a chair
Yeah.
if you need to. So I would highly recommend bodygroove.com to anybody who's looking for something to kind of a structure that gets them moving. Because I know for me sometimes, yeah, I can put on music and dance around the house, but I often get distracted. Like, oh, squirrel, I got to go do this thing. Or, I heard my phone ringing or my email beep, and I get distracted. Whereas if I lock into one of those, I'm going to do that for at least that 5 minutes. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
The other thing is sometimes I notice on Zoom, and this I've given to a couple of my clients, is you can just engage your glutes and
Yep.
release them. And people don't, I mean, I'm doing extreme here. I
Yeah.
can do like this and you don't even know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
and again, those are big muscles. It's working those muscles. Um, yeah,
Helps us
anything you
slow
can
down.
do.
Yeah,
Yes.
which a lot of us have. Okay. And what else are the kinds of things that really help people feel more confident and reverse that aging process, that sense of, because you also talked about fuzzy brain and not quite as
Yeah.
feeling, as energetic. So what are some other things that you did?
So I have, and I actually work a lot with people on doing certain exercises. So for example, and I find the ones that couple the brain and movement together actually work better. So one of the first ones that I started having people do is they have their thumb and their little finger,
Mhm.
and then their thumb and their index finger, and then you just switch them.
Ooh.
Right? So it
Not,
requires you to think about it, right? At first.
not as
And
easy
then
as
after
that.
yes.
I have to really think about though. It does, and my brain, it's very hard. My brain does
It
not.
is. And so little things like that really stimulate the brain and also get the brain and the body to work together because so much of what we do is one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Especially we're so brain focused
Yeah.
in our society and with what most of what we do that this really. So then when you master it doing it this way, right?
Yes.
Then you can start turning your head.
Oh, you see, you make it look so easy. My no, my fingers, they just I because
Well,
I
I've done it maybe once or twice before.
yeah, a time or two. Okay. So switching, and by the way, those of you who can't see the video, so just to remind you, little finger and thumb on one hand, index finger and or pointer finger and thumb on the other hand, and then walk through the fingers to get to the other finger. There, I did it that time, but it took me a
Yay.
lot of concentration and really slow, so that you've switched your hands. Not easy. Good brain exercise. Yeah, I love that.
It's a really good one. And actually, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so basically taking things like that. And then um, another one that I have people do is, and I'll sit back a little bit, is they have one arm that goes up and down,
Mhm.
right? So I have my left arm going from the top to the bottom, and
Yeah.
then I'm taking my other hand and making a circle,
Okay, that one's a lot easier for me.
and then have the circle go the other way.
Okay.
Right, and see how your other hand is starting to, right?
A little
So
harder.
usually
Yeah.
one direction is easier than the other.
Yes.
And then you can start doing things like this, right? Where you're going up and down and side to side. So really changing, so you're doing something different with one side of the body than with the other. And that really triggers that cross brain development that we really need to have in order to stay vital as we age.
Oh, love that. Are these brain gym exercises or is that something different?
I don't know. I started doing a lot of these because I wanted to be balanced as a dancer.
Okay.
So, and then I started reading about a couple of studies that were talking about how doing things on different sides of the body created different growth patterns. And so, I'm not familiar with is it you call brain gym?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's similar types of things, and it's movements that cross wire the right and
the
left
brain.
synapse.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. So you mentioned that you work with clients. So let's transition a bit here. Tell me a little bit about what is the kind of work you do with clients, because I know some of it is physical things like that, but a lot of it is also mindset. And I personally don't like the word mindset because I don't even know what the heck that means, but let's
Exactly.
call it the inner game, whatever we want to call it, but basically how we think about aging and how we think about ourselves, because ageism is very insidious. It's much more blatant out in our society than it is in our brains, but it is insipid in our brains. We have been trained to think, and judge ourselves from an ageist perspective. So, what are some of the mind shifts that you work with people on to help them with reversing that aging?
So one of the things to start out with is figuring out what you look good in.
Mm,
And I say that as it sounds kind of weird, but I know a woman in her 70s who can rock short skirts just like Tina Turner could.
okay.
Now, I know 20-year-olds that can't wear them and look that good.
Yeah.
That's not what I can do, but I can wear red lipstick.
Yeah.
So starting to build that awareness or deciding what is it that I can wear that looks good on me and that I feel good. And a lot of times it will require them to step outside of their comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, I've been told, I'm over 50, I can't wear a short skirt, or I can't have my hair long, or I can't wear red lipstick,
Yes.
or,
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to wear black anymore. None of that stuff is true. It depends on what looks good on you.
Yeah.
So, really starting to say, and I usually start with having people look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And you look in the mirror and you say, look for the one thing that you really like about your face and about your body.
Okay. Yep.
And then you compliment yourself.
Yeah.
And from that, then you decide, how am I going to make this more prevalent in my everyday activities and how I show up every day?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just talked about it in this set span of probably 30 seconds.
Yep.
This can take days.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, very hard, especially for women,
Mm-hmm.
to look in the mirror and say, I like this about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really hard. Sometimes it's easier to ask somebody else, what is my most attractive feature?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then look and go, yeah, that might be right.
Yes.
But it starts that process. And also, if you're looking at clothes or if you're looking at something, you can even be paging through a magazine.
Mhm.
And what thoughts are going through your head when you see that, when you think about, I like that? Do you say, but I'm too old, or I could never wear that because I'm old, or I'm too this or that?
Mhm.
Because understanding that we have that preconceived notion about what we can and can't do,
Mhm.
that we then project out to the world.
Right.
So that if you're saying, I'm too old, the rest of the world going, yep, she says she's too old. That's her. She knows what she is and she isn't. We're going to go with it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love that poem, When I Am Old, I Shall Wear Purple. And it talks about just that. I'll wear what I want and how I want and look how I want. And I think one of the beautiful things of getting older is that we have less approval issues than we used to have. And so we used to follow all the shoulds. You should be
Yes,
this way. You should act that way. You should look this way. And now we just don't give as big a shit about the shoulds, right? And that I think is probably the biggest blessing of getting older. Certainly
absolutely.
for me. And so more permission to be fully self-expressed. But you're right. A lot of our training is don't do that. Don't go there. Don't be too loud. Who do you think you are? Don't be too big for your britches, all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this right now and you want to wear gypsy clothes, then please do. If you want to, wear bright red lipstick, please do. If you want to dye your hair blue, please do, or purple or orange or whatever the heck it is. Have fun with it. And honestly, I gotta kind of insert here. I often wear these are probably my most tame glasses. They're blue and green, but I've got
You have
red
an awesome collection of
yeah, red
glasses.
and white polka dots and black, white polka dots. And I tend to wear lots of color. I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing lots of color. I get so many compliments on my hair and on my glasses on and look and so forth. Mostly from, well, I get from all ages, but a lot of them from people who kind of give me this compliment and you can see a wistfulness on their face. Like, oh, I wish I could give myself permission to do that. They like, oh, you look great. And they're kind of sometimes they'll even say, I wish I could do that, or I wish I was brave enough to do that, or whatever. And my comment is always, well, if not now, honey, when? So just go do it. It's a way of lighting up the world because we're more lit up. So I think that's a great
Exactly.
advice. People think it's a simple little thing or, oh, it's just how I look. No, it makes a difference to how we feel and it gives other people permission to be more fully expressed. So, yeah, give people that gift. All right. So, what else helps with that mind shift?
So some of the other things that help with the mind shift are once you start eating better and you start moving, then you think clearer.
Mm,
So then you start to, so it's kind of like you have all of these building blocks that really start. And then it's like, oh, well, maybe I can. One of my clients is now learning a new language, which
mhm.
she thought she would never be able to do that because she couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Right. So now having the other thing is finding the thing that makes you happy. And
Mhm.
this can be a walk in nature. It can be going to an art museum. It can be going to a car show. It can be doing whatever it is, but finding something that
Mhm.
is outside of your normal daily routine that
Mhm.
brings you joy because your brain lights up.
Mhm.
All these these feel good things are released in your body. It can be music, any of those things, but doing something like that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. One of the things that I talk about when I'm talking about maturepreneurs and speaking and stuff is that the World Health Organization says being lonely and isolated and unhappy makes us a lot unhealthier and unhappier and is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of its impact on our well-being and our physical health. Whereas
Right.
meaning and purpose in our life, something that is feels significant to you, it doesn't have to be world shattering, it's just meaningful for you, adds 7 qualitative years to your life. You're going to be happier and healthier. So it really does matter to have meaning and joy and pleasure in your life. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about people finding their why and why I help them figure out what is your why, what is your purpose, so that you can incorporate that and follow that. And like you said, it gets you out of bed in the morning. So
Absolutely.
what are some of the ways that you you suggest people kind of work on that mindset? Because sometimes we get locked into a negative perspective. People have been brought up that way to be, suspicious, or to look for the problems, or to, that kind of thing. What are some ways that you work with clients to shift that perspective?
One of the things is looking at your personal relationships. Who are your friends and who do you surround yourself with? And
Mm,
are they uplifting or are they people that bring you down?
yep.
And those are tough conversations to have.
Mhm,
But they say you are a reflection of the people that you surround yourself with.
mhm.
So finding a way to break into, and it can be a book club. It can be, I know a woman who she's in a crocheting group,
Yep.
or it can be, and the thing she likes about her crocheting group is there are men and women and they're all ages from 20 to 80. So you
Cool.
never really know what you're going to get with some of these, but take the opportunity to pretend like you're a tourist in your own town.
Yeah.
And once a week or every other week or once a month, it doesn't matter what it is, do one thing that
Yeah.
you wouldn't normally do.
That's a great idea. And meetup.com is great for that. There's lots of meetup groups and activities. I signed up, I haven't got there yet, but there's a down at the local library, they have a Saturday coloring class twice every 2 weeks where you
Oh,
can.
fun.
So I'm going to go to that. You have coffee and coloring, they call it. And so just all sorts of things that you can do. But Meetup has a tremendous number of interest groups. So you can find a walking group or a hiking group or a crochet group or a learn a language group or all of those things, and courses and workshops and stuff. I think that's a great way to also really support keeping a growth mindset. And growth mindset versus fixed mindset makes a big difference in terms of how we age too.
Very much so. Longevity, not only it's quality of life, but quantity as well. Absolutely. Yep.
And so I can tell that you're really passionate about this. What are some of the things that you've seen in terms of transformation when people have really said, embrace this and said, okay, I want to feel better, be better, etc. What are some of the shifts and changes you've seen in yourself and your clients? What's possible if we actually do this work?
So I've got, well, for an example, one client who she came to me, she was working way too many hours. She had put on a ton of weight. She was having problems in her marriage and knew that she needed to do something.
Mhm.
So we started identifying some of the top things that she needed to do. First of all, was clean up her diet because what she was eating was making everything worse. And so we kind of started with a plan of the low hanging fruit, which was the diet. And as we started going through this, she noticed that she was sleeping better. She
Mhm.
dropped 30 pounds. And I'm not a weight loss person, but a lot of times when you go through and do these things, it kind of happens. She found that she had more energy to do things with her spouse. They would go out walking, they got another dog. Um, and as her stress levels started lowering, she began to reevaluate what she was doing for her career.
Mhm.
And finally was to the point where she could see the forest for the trees and decide, you know what, I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me. So she found something else that
Mhm.
pays her more money, gives
Mhm.
her more free time, and has really changed the relationship with her wife, but also with her children. And she was there for the birth of her grandchild. So she
Uh,
was really happy about that. And that's just one example at changing the relationship between the people, but also reversing. I had another client through this, was able to get off all of the medications that are used for high blood pressure
mhm.
because everything in his life was adding stress. And so he would get stressed so by figuring out what to eat, how to move, and those kinds of things, and really thinking, okay, this is upsetting. I can do certain kinds of breathing. I can do certain other things and calm and relax,
Mhm.
able to bring down the blood pressure, dropped weight, off the medications, and has maintained that for 5 years now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
So,
especially like you said, when it's pleasure led instead of a should or a have to or someone else's program or approach, then you're more likely to continue it and maintain it and make it part of your lifestyle. Um,
Exactly.
so let's just switch tracks just a minute and talk about you and your entrepreneurial journey, because you were a pharmacist. So I'm assuming you worked in pharmacies. Was it your own business or did you work for someone else? Where did you come
I worked for a major health system and I was in a very finite group, and that is we only did intravenous medications.
from? Okay.
So it was a very small subset, pretty high stress, but very, very interesting. So in
Okay.
that setting, people come to me, they're in trauma and they need something. Now, some of them are going to follow the advice that you give, others of them are not. So the difference is that the clients presented patients in that world come to you already.
Mm-hmm.
In the entrepreneurial world, you need to grab their attention.
Right.
Radically different ways of operating.
Yeah. So
Radically different.
when did you make the decision to make the leap? So you were in a stressful job. How old were you and what made you decide to make the change?
So I had dabbled with the idea pre-COVID. And then COVID hit and back into healthcare and all of the things that happened then. And it took me probably till 2023 or so to say, okay. And I promised to support them through a system change that they're making. And for me, it was, I want to have an impact on the people that were like me.
Mm,
I don't see that those people are being helped in the way that I feel like I can help them.
right.
And I remember how painful it was to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, my God, I can't live the rest of my life this way.
Right.
I remember thinking, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I was fortunate enough to have the medical background that I could figure it out, but a lot of people don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that a pill is not going to get me there, I need to make lifestyle changes and understanding what's happening with my body.
Right.
That to me is, I kind of look at it as why I've spent all these years gathering all of this knowledge.
Right. That makes sense. And so what made you decide that, okay, I'm going to do that by going out into starting my own business versus say getting a job somewhere doing that, or and how was that leap for you to go from full-time employee to entrepreneur?
I didn't really see anybody who was doing what it was that I'm doing. I found places that were heavy on supplements or were using IV medications like IV bags, hydration with vitamins or glutathione, or, and there it's physician with the nurse who administers. So I didn't really find anything. Plus, I wanted to have a more expanded approach. In other words, not relying on just one modality, because we're not one organ as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
But one modality is not going to do the trick.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Okay. And how was it making that entrepreneurial leap? What was the biggest challenge for you?
It was understanding that I needed to talk differently.
Okay.
Because I'm a clinician, been a clinician for 30 plus years. It's like, okay, I know how to ask questions. I know how to figure out what's going on. I know how to propose a solution or to guide or know when to pull in an expert as far as a physician because this is off the track. But to create content that goes, how do I do a post? What
Mhm.
do I need to, and to take my content and phrase it in a way that makes it so people will want to jump in. Because if I say, okay, we're going to put you on a diet, we're going to make you go to bed, you're going to have to exercise this number of times a day, blah, blah, blah. It's like, thank you very much, but no, I'm
Right.
not interested. But understanding how to talk about these things and really understanding how it's really benefit driven, because in the end, it's all about being able to live long and well and be healthy and enjoy life.
Exactly.
But we talk about it from a different perspective. And quite honestly, in the job I was in, it was a drive-by because they were only had IVs for a certain period of time.
Hmm.
Did I talk about all of the stuff that have talked about here? Pretty much, because you need to know that stuff. But
Hmm.
I didn't have the length of time with
Right.
them.
So for the transformation, it was kind of drop and go interventions. Well, and so you had to learn how to put out content, how to change your language to reach your market. How about sales? Because there's a very big difference between um,
Ooh,
having a product and people coming to you because they want to buy the product and you don't have to sell anything. Versus now, not only do you have to sell a solution, but you also have to sell yourself. How was that for you?
that was tough because we don't, you know, many times in healthcare, we don't talk about ourselves
Hmm.
at all. You might throw, you're conversational. I try to make it so that people at least laughed or had a little bit because healing happens better when you do that. But it's so much different, unbelievably different, because you're not sharing about you
Hmm.
and what you believe and why you think this is the best
Hmm.
because it's kind of assumed you're in that setting. You have to be an expert. I've got credentials like this that tell you I'm an expert. Out in the real world, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You can put all the initials you want after your name, and that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And so, how did you overcome that? How did you overcome? Did you have resistance to selling and especially selling yourself?
Yes, it
Okay.
was it was difficult. So I believe in having a coach.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Because if I already had the skill sets, that would be different.
Yeah.
But the other thing is being able to step back and say, this is my zone of genius.
Hmm.
This I know nothing about, and this is where I need help. Because really, if I want to make the impact in the world that I want to, I need to have the skills that are necessary. And so I viewed it as it's no different than me studying about a new medication that comes out and the safety profile and when it needs to be given and all those kinds of things. It's a little bit bigger,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's
Well,
still
quite a bit bigger. It's interesting to me because entrepreneurship is probably one of the only professions that people get into and think they don't actually need to go to school for. And when I say school, I don't necessarily mean university because you won't really learn
right.
to be an entrepreneur in university. You'll hear downsized corporate think, but you won't actually really in most universities learn real entrepreneurship. But they would never go be a brain surgeon without taking some training, but they think they can be a business owner without any training. And there's a lot of internal blocks that come up, like, oh, now I'm selling myself versus this solution. And now I don't necessarily have the credentials of, or the credibility from the credentials in the same way. So I have to create my own authority. And now I have to ask people to give me money. And before I just got a paycheck. And, all
That's
of
exactly
transition.
right.
And that's a lot that people have to learn to not only overcome the limiting beliefs that get in the way, but also then, like you said, how do I market? How do I create content? How do I have a sales conversation? The skills as well as the internal game. So what was the biggest surprise for you or hurdle that you had to overcome so far in your entrepreneurial journey? So how old were when you made the transition to your business?
So I would say probably the biggest transition with it happened at around 65, 66.
Okay.
So I'm 68 now.
Okay.
Um, for me, it was because I spent so many years not talking about me.
Mhm.
That was probably the biggest one,
Yeah.
is because people people in healthcare don't share that much about themselves personally because they want the focus to be on the other person, right?
Right.
In this environment, people have to get to know you, to like you, to trust you, to find out who you are and what you are before they're going to decide to spend money with you.
Yeah. Yes.
And the only way that happens is if you share who you are.
Yes. Yes. And especially your why, I believe, because
Yeah,
people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's what's
exactly.
quote from Simon Sinek that I love using quite often. And I think, and it's really the only thing that differentiates us too, because there's lots of people who do what you do and do what I do. And, there's a lot of people who do everything, especially because we're in a global market now. You can access almost anyone online for services and so forth. So you do need to be really clear on why they would pick you versus anybody else. So you mentioned getting a coach. What would be your advice to people who are just making the transition now? So they might have some area of expertise like you did, and they're moving into a new way of offering that. So you went from being a pharmacist with lots of knowledge about wellness into doing research in your own transformative journey to now being a wellness coach and age reverser in the world. How
Yeah.
um, what would you say to people around? What support do they need to get in order to make this transition to be successful in creating their own business? What do you wish you had done sooner?
What I wish I would have done sooner is understanding what it is that I needed. So basically have go in and do an internal check, so to speak. And it might be that you don't really know what that is that you need, but you kind of have an idea. So you kind of look at, and a lot of it starts with reading, right? You can read about what it takes to run a business or, what the art of persuasion or some of those kinds of things. So you kind of have a little bit of an idea. So you're doing a little bit of research. Being able to then you know, listen to a bunch of people, find out who is really somebody that you're going to vibe with. Because if you pick a coach and they don't speak in a way that you understand what it is, or they're not goal oriented enough, or maybe they have more woo woo than what you want, or maybe they're angry when they talk or have whatever it is, but sample some before you make the commitment.
Mhm.
And then when you make the commitment, jump in full.
That's such important advice. It sounds like a no-brainer, but I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and said, "Man, I wish I'd met you $50,000 ago because they've invested in this program and that coaching group and this mastermind and that coach, but they haven't gone all in." And so they haven't really, sometimes it's the wrong fit at the wrong time. Quite often that's the case,
Yeah.
or the wrong approach for them. But often it's that they don't go all in. So they don't get the value out that they could have. Sorry, just a sec. Oh, goodness. I was going to say, speaking of books and learning, this is one I would recommend. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber is one of the books that's been around forever and ever. And if you are just moving into this, the E-Myth is required reading. So, excuse me, go and learn what it means to be an entrepreneur before you make that leap. And as you're making that leap, but also get a coach, get the right coach. The
Yes.
and unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through the wrong coach to find the right one. So don't let perfectionism stop you, because you'll learn as you go
Yep.
through the wrong
Well,
one.
and sometimes you don't know what you need,
Yeah,
right? So you just make
exactly.
the leap and then, you learn a lot from that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Um, we'll put the link into the show notes, but I wrote an ebook on how to choose the right business coach for you. Because it is such an important, and whether it's a business coach or a personal coach, I don't call them life coaches because I don't know what the heck that means, but um, whatever kind of coach it is, this book would help you with really understanding how to set a criteria for yourself for picking the right person for you. Um, and it's not necessarily, like you mentioned, it can help you go from not knowing and not being good at something to being okay at it or better at it, or from good to great, right? There's both kinds of coaching. Tiger Woods is arguably a very good golfer. He always has four coaches. Um, even now. And so you will go from good to great, or you just get good at what you're doing, but get support, get a support structure that
Absolutely.
um speaking of support, so the we'll put the notes in there for the business coach checklist for you, but also you have a gift for people to
I
help
do.
their journey. So tell them about that.
So, 5 ways to feel sexy and confident at any age. And this is something that you can do. Some of the things are really inexpensive, others of them might cost a little bit, but it really takes you through the journey of exploration. Because once you find things that start to really open up your senses, and that's really what it's about, is being able to open up those senses, because when you open them up, you feel more, life is richer, and they're a little bit different than what you may have thought about doing. So, um, I absolutely loved creating this, and have some people that have just said they really enjoyed the different perspective that are provided to them as well, and jumped in for some of them. So some people, all of them.
Okay, and that's at anagelesslife.com/sexy. All right, so go there and grab that resource. And I'm assuming people can find you and connect with you on anagelesslife.com, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that the best way to reach out and connect with you? And who do you work with? And do you work remotely, online, or just in person? How do you work, and how can they get in touch with you?
So you can get in touch with me through the website, or you can do Diana at anagelesslife.com, or you can find me on YouTube, An Ageless Life with Diana Devi. I'm on TikTok, so any of those you can find me there. As far as I work primarily with women, but I have worked with men as well, so don't think you're being left out, over the age of 50. A lot of my clients are 55 plus. And if you're looking at trying to figure out what it is that you can do to have the energy to do the things that you want to do, be it climb Mount Everest, maybe it's play with your grandkids on the floor, write a book, start a business, keep a business going, any of those things, I'm the one for you.
Awesome. And it's never too late. That's a really important part.
It is never, ever too late.
Awesome. Okay. So, and speaking of support, I want to let you know that the Maturepreneur Network was designed exactly for those of you who are either getting clear on what's next for you and how to create your next chapter, getting going with that. So you're launching that dream, whatever that may be, your nonprofit, your business, your side hustle, or you're keeping going. You're one of those people who may need to renew your passion, or you're scaling up, or you're just kicking ass and taking names. The Maturepreneur Network is a really affordable, value-packed community that keeps you in motion, gives you networking and masterminding and expert speakers and group coaching and all sorts of support and resources and structure, because as we get older, we tend to think we can do it ourselves, and no one successful ever did it on their own. So go check out Maturepreneur. So mature and then preneur from entrepreneur .world, and check out the network. We would love to have you become part of the community, and you need community to make this next leap successfully and to create your dream the way you want to. If you want to stay ageless as you do this, then reach out to Diana, find out more information, go get her resource on how to be sexy and confident as you age. And that goes for any and all of y'all, because we can always be sexy at any age, because that's more of a mindset than anything else. And Diana, what's one last thing you'd like to leave everyone with? What's your final word of advice for people?
So I often say age is just a number. It's how you live your life that counts.
Great. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful and bodacious week, and set your number wherever you want it to be. Thanks for now for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.